From Amy's mother's death in the first episode to Ty's shock death in the 14th season, these are the times Heartland broke fans' hearts. For more than a decade, Heartland has made us cheer, gasp, laugh, and yes, cry. While Heartland isn't the saddest show by any means, there have been some scenes and storylines that have truly left fans heartbroken. I mean, from the get-go, this show was breaking hearts. Anyone remember the very first episode with Amy Fleming, played by Amber Marshall, and her mother, Marion Fleming? Right off the bat, when the series begins, Amy and her mom get in a truck accident, and Marion dies. Amy must then pull herself together after the accident, as well as figure out how to run the ranch her mother left behind. Though Amy's family bands together, it's still heartbreaking to watch. From this first episode, it was clear what type of show Heartland was going to be.
Hey, watch it. What are you doing?
I want to know what kind of idiot revs his truck around a horse.
Nice to meet you, too.
Starting off with a tragedy is definitely risky, but Heartland isn't always full of sadness and heartbreak. It is full of lovely family moments that just so happen to be laced with some of these more tragic moments. Even though we don't get to know Amy's mom Marion for long, and even though later moments would break our hearts more, this moment definitely made Heartland fans sad. Of course, as the show continued, even more heartbreaking moments arrived, such as in Season 5 when Mr. Hanley dies. Now, Mr. Hanley was nowhere near a constant character, but there's something about his death and this entire episode that's just heartbreaking. After Amy realizes Mr. Hanley's dead, she tries to do what she can for his horses, as they might be bought up by people who will just kill them. Obviously, she doesn't want this to happen. Throughout the episode, we watch as Amy tries to do this one good thing, and as she deals with Mr. Hanley's unexpected death. Sometimes the most pivotal and the most heartbreaking moments of the show come from little episodes like this. Sure, Mr. Hanley wasn't a big character. Fans of the show might even have a hard time remembering who he is. But rewatching this episode from Season 5 still as heartbreaking as ever, even if you've watched the episode or the entire Heartland series multiple times. I don't know about you, but I think I'll always need a few tissues at hand when this one comes on. Think that's the only heartbreaking episode to watch with tissues by your side? Think again, friends! Another heartbreaking moment in the series comes in Season 13, and it has everything to do with Jack Bartlett, played by Sean Johnston. In the episode Rearview Mirror, Jack's dealing with a whole lot. His past has come back to haunt him, and he can't seem to deal with these painful memories. Even though Jack's family and friends try to help him, he has to work through his problems himself. As the episode progresses, we learn just what's going on. Jack opens up about his poor mood, and we learn about his tragic youth. When he was younger, Jack left his ranch to compete at a rodeo. Harmless enough, right? Well, his younger sister had to pick up on the ranch where Jack left off, now that he was gone. Somebody had to do it. And it was while she was doing all of these ranch chores that an accident occurred and the poor girl died. Ever since that day, Jack has blamed himself. He's carried the weight of his guilt around for decades. Opening up about this does help him slightly, as it's always good to get these feelings off your chest. But the whole episode truly is heartbreaking. Jack's story is tragic, and it's hard not to feel for the man. He's been through so much, thanks to that guilt he's been carrying around. In many ways, other than the major deaths on the show, this episode is perhaps the most heartbreaking episode of all of Heartland. It's a fan favorite, as it makes fans feel so much when watching it. Speaking of deaths, let's move on to almost deaths, which sometimes can be just as sad as actual character deaths on the show. To watch some of our favorite characters almost die, to see other characters almost lose the ones they love, talk about tragic, talk about heartbreaking. In Season 3, we get an action-packed episode that deals with a plane crash. Ty Borden, played by Graham Wardle, and Scott Cardinal, played by Nathaniel Arcand, find themselves stuck in the wilderness after a terrible plane crash. As they try to get in contact with their potential rescuers, those at the ranch stress and worry like no other. Why wouldn't they? At the site of the plane crash, both Ty and Scott are worse for wear. But even Ty knows that Scott is in bad shape. He needs to be rescued immediately. Ty tries to help both of them, as it does look like Scott might not make it. But Scott's not the only one who could die. Ty could too. The episode drags on, and still, neither man is saved. Nobody can get in contact with them or find them. Eventually they're saved, and Ty and Scott are reunited with their loved ones. But for a second there, it really looked like we would all lose Ty and Scott. The episode is heartbreaking to watch even now that we know they'll live. Of course, nothing beats watching this episode for the first time and completely stressing out. Ty had a lot of tense moments in Heartland, some of which quickly became heartbreaking to watch, other than this plane crash episode.
It's me. Listen, don't come, okay? It's too dangerous.
Remember when he was in Mongolia, in Season 10, Amy and Tim Fleming, played by Chris Potter, arrive in Mongolia on their search for Ty. Once again, Ty is in danger and Amy is beyond worried. Throughout this action-packed, heartbreaking episode, we truly don't know what will happen to Ty. Right when Amy and Tim think they have found Ty, who they assume possibly just got lost, they realize that he's not there, and then come to the horrible realization that he's been kidnapped. This is where the show really gets tense, as it's hard to imagine anything but the worst. Amy and Tim continue to search for Ty, thinking he was taken by some poachers. Eventually, they find Ty unharmed, and Amy and he are able to have a tearful reunion. The episode is heartbreaking in an almost bittersweet way because it could have ended so differently. Unfortunately, Ty's overall story did end a few seasons later. Yes, it's now time to talk about the most heartbreaking moment in all of Heartland, as well as the most heartbreaking and shocking death, the death of Ty. Ty's death comes about in the 14th season. By this point, he's married to Amy and they have a daughter. Everything is almost perfect in their little world, even with their day-to-day drama and struggles. Such is life. But then, the most tragic thing happens. Ty is shot, and while at first it appears as if he'll survive this, he gets a blood clot from the shooting and then eventually dies, leaving his wife Amy, as well as his little girl, who will now grow up without a father. It's more than a little heartbreaking. This moment completely broke fans' hearts, especially because Ty has been a constant on the show from the very beginning. For more than a decade, fans have watched this troubled young man grow up. They've seen him fall in love with Amy and finally get to be with her.
You're a good boy.
Thank you for reminding me that fighting for what you believe in matters. And thank you for making this town a better place.
Both of them working out their childhood youthful drama to become the loving adults they always knew they could be. To see Ty's story end like this, in such a sad and tragic way, was definitely hard for Heartland viewers. To this day, it will likely remain the most heartbreaking moment of the entire series. There's truly nothing that could top it. All in all, Heartland is a great drama that has a few heartbreaking moments fans will never forget. From Amy's mother's death in episode 1 to Ty's untimely death in season 14, these were the most notable times Heartland broke fans' hearts.